COVID and how the art world responds to it. Today, we're going to look at galleries and collectors and talk a little bit about how, how when you're collecting or when you run a gallery, how you can, what the influence is of the pandemic on your practice. This panel started in March, I think, April, when the first kind of large lockdown started. And when Joao called me and said, like, how do you think about the art world's response to the lockdown and to the pandemic? And we spoke a little bit and we said, like, everyone's trying to do things online, but how does it actually work for artists when they're making work, and how does it work for people that want to present art in the physical space, and how are all these relations changing? And what we were also immediately interested in, like, what are new ways of presenting, what are ways of sharing information, or what is going to change in the future. So we said, like, let's make a panel there where we invite practitioners in the art field who live all over the world, because it was very important from the beginning to have a a kind of dispersed view or a multi-layered view, to get rid of a very Western driven art world view on things. So we immediately opened it up and invited for every panel people from different parts of the globe. We've been talking about how to present art. We've been talking about art and activism. We've been talking about taking care of each other. We've been talking about technology and art. And every time we had artists, curators, art organizers in the panels. So this time, it's a bit more focused on like people who work in galleries or with collections or are collectors. More, I think, in the other panels, it was always more a combination of artists and curators. And it's very interesting to really look at a more specific side of the art. So we have Anna Carmen Longobardi from São Paulo. Can you wave, Anna? Hi.
Nice to meet you, Joao.
Yeah. And then we have Sylvain Levy from the DSL Collection. He is based in Paris and currently as well, right? Or are you?
The source of, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Jennifer Ellis, who is based in London, but lived a long time in Hong Kong. I'm going to share all the biographies in the chat for the audience. And we have Aparajita Jain from New Delhi, who is running Nature Morte and many other projects. And we have Joost Bosland, who is now in Amsterdam, but just comes from Cape Town. Joao Correia and myself, Maaike Gouwenberg, we are the organizers. I'm at the moment in Berlin, and Joao is in São Paulo. The panel will be 90 minutes long, and if you have to leave earlier, it's totally possible. We're very happy with anyone who wants to listen in. I'm gonna put all the biographies in the chat, and ask the audience if you have any question or comments or want to respond, please do it in the chat. But we cannot, we have to see if there's enough time to also include you in the conversation. I think that's it for the moment. Joao, I'm gonna give you the mic to talk a little bit about the theme, and then we're gonna give the floor to our panelists instead of ourselves.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Joao Correia. I'm in São Paulo. And as Maaike was saying, like in previous panels, we talked about care, we talked about live arts, we talked about technology And this time the subject is like collecting, and collectors have a major role, and often they support museums. And there was an analogy that Pablo Guerra from MoMA did with the art world and the chessboard, and in that analogy, the collectors were like the queen, like they have such an influence in the scene. So this is like one of our topics today, how these collectors and how galleries like are responding to COVID. And there are a few guiding questions just to help us put in the mindset. It's like, how will COVID influence the practice of gallery owners and art collectors? Some of the kind of sub-questions that comes to mind is like, there is a new sense of local and global, because we are now all in different locations, but we are connected. Before when we were in different locations, we were not as connected as before. So how would this reflect in the kind of art that we collect, that we promote? And one moment, I'm just letting some people in. And how art fairs, isn't it? That was like such a party, like we were doing several fairs, like there was one a week, 2 a week, and several at the same time. How will they react to the new situation? How is the relationship, that the physical relationship that we have with artworks will change if the physical relationship we have between ourselves is changing? And how, if our lives are migrating to digital, how will that reflect into the pieces we collect and the pieces we promote? And how galleries and collectors that are now perhaps more sensitive to sustainability, will that reflect in the making of the artworks, or the kind of artworks that we collect and we promote? And typically, in terms of the market, online purchases, they are on sort of the lower end of the price points, and so and when they are traded online. So if we are now more online than before, does it mean that that segment of like lower price pieces will become like stronger? So like these are just some of the things that came to mind that I'm sharing with you, and you can start with these questions or with these points or not, as you wish. Just a couple of words like about Arca. Arca is a project I started last August in São Paulo. And that was the idea of Arca. Like, it's a project to address the challenge we're facing in the world and putting the world at risk, using art as a vehicle of navigation, like from where we were to this new world that's coming up. And this pandemic we are living, like, made the mission of Arca even more urgent, because something that was already in our minds, now it became like a day-to-day reflection. And I think this is it. So I'll pass the mic to who wants to start, and should we go on like a alphabetic order? And do you want to start, Anna?
Let Mark start. I prefer then we don't go to alphabetical.
Okay. What we always do is that we quickly say our situation in how it is in the pandemic. So I just arrived in Berlin, and I came from the Netherlands, and before the Netherlands, I came from the US. And I was already in shock when I came in the Netherlands, because no one is wearing a mask, only public transport, and people are hugging and giving each other hands. And I'm like, help, help. It's too much, because the US is so strict. And now I'm in Berlin, and here it's a very strange combination of, you have to wear a mask when you go into the store, but then when you meet people on the street, they all give you a hug. And some are really distant, so they keep their distance, but others, most of people just give you a hug. And I'm really a little bit, because now in the Netherlands, the numbers are rising again, and I get a little bit anxious. I noticed that I'm like, I don't know so well how to respond to this, and if it's healthy to already be this close, you know? So that's my situation. Maybe Joao, you can say 2 lines about you in Sao Paulo, and then we give the mic. Maybe Jenn, do you want to start talking a little bit about your situation and how you think about the whole, your practice? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we getting 2 words from Joao? Or
Yes, well, you wanna say how terrible it is in São Paulo at the moment? You're muted. You're muted.
Yes, now it's okay. Well, the situation in São Paulo, it's in the capital, it's going better right now. Most people respect, but perhaps you are familiar with Brazil as a country, and it's a continental population, so it's very hard. And I am in quarantine since the beginning of March, and I traveled to Marfa. So I started traveling this year. I am the only one that was lucky to have a huge and beautiful travel to Marfa. And then I went to New York. I stood there. And I went to Armory Art Fair, imagine this. And then when I was back to São Paulo, everything closed. 1 week after I left New York, the museums and everything in New York closed. And I said, oh my God, I've been exposed to everybody giving hugs and kisses. But I was very lucky. And then I started being in quarantine since when I came back. And recently, on Saturday, I came. I'm far from my mother. She lives where I am not right now. She's 97 years old, and she's a very high group of in the group of risk, and but she's so isolated that I prefer to come, and I'm very happy doing this because after 7 months, it's far from her. Talking with FaceTime and Skype and everything, she doesn't. She's okay. She understands the situation, but she needs some physical presence. So I am here, and I'm very happy doing this. So if the sign is not so good, it's because I am in another place right now. So. I don't know, I don't understand because I go to New York 4 times a year at least. I love that city. And I am so sad about all the transformation that came in, not surround me in my place, in my country, but also in the cities where you are used to go and have friends. And this distance, I really, I feel sorry about this, but we keep on going. And here the situation in general in Brazil, I don't know if you're aware, with the government, our leader, and it's like a Trump situation, like what Trump is, they are very, very similar in so you imagine how we feel here. We don't know when and how, but I am very optimistic. I really am, and I think as soon as we have this vaccine and everything, will be okay. In terms of the situation with the pandemic, the other economic, and this is going to be a hard time for, I think, for everybody. No, not only in Brazil. Brazil is worse, of course, with the social problems we have here, different from other countries. And that's it.
Thank you, Anna. Do you want to go, Jenn?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenn Ellis. I'm based in London. But as Maaike mentioned, I lived for many years in Hong Kong, about 5 of them, but I grew up in Switzerland. I think in terms of, the pandemic, I was one of the first people in London having contact with Hong Kong and Shanghai every day to be like, what are we doing here? How are we still in the streets? How are we not wearing masks? How is all of this just continuing? So I started isolating myself back at the very start of March. And the situation now is that it's eased. Galleries have started to open up again. There's all these social distancing measures. The Tate is going to be reopening its doors at the end of this month, so literally just next week. And the mood, generally speaking, is one of adjustment. I think people are really, really excited to see one another. As soon as it was possible to go see other gallerists, we were stepping in and, seeing these people who we love, and these chance encounters were still happening, but at a distance, but they were still happening. So there's a real thirst. I would say that one thing that I have noticed over the course of this period is this coming together. We already had like a WhatsApp group amongst like gallerists or gallery owners and here in London, but during the course of these last 3 months, it's been a question of like, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? Do you have any tips for this? Do you have any tips for that? There's a real spirit of collaboration that was there beforehand that has been enhanced and developed further. I would say that also from the perspective of someone who also buys art, I made a purchase during the course of lockdown, and I've also had other friends of mine make purchases over the course of lockdown because they've been spending a lot of time at home, as we all have, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, how do we make our places feel more beautiful, right? It's not just about the show, it's also about the feeling and the creation around you. So these are two observations that I've made. And I mean, just to come back to what like Maaike was saying about like personal experience, I for 3 years, I have been thinking about how you can experience art in a virtual digital world, having been for a decade a gallerist from London to Hong Kong to Shanghai. And so I launched during lockdown a virtual space and platform that's been 3 years in the works, that has the aim of instilling a sense of calm and well-being through the meeting of art, architecture, and music. It's called Aora. And what's quite incredible, and I still keep on like finding different angles to it every single day, what's quite incredible is that it's a space you can visit anywhere in the world at any point in time, so long as you have an internet connection. And I think that a lot of the digital offerings have been really cold. I think we can all agree that we're a little bit tired with perhaps the majority of online viewing rooms. But this one sets out to be multi-sensory. It's created from scratch by a dear architect friend of mine. We used a VR technologist who's a gamer. And there is a real sense of soul, which I think is really hard to create in a digital space, but I encourage you to all go visit. We all have an internet connection here since we're here, and go do that. But one thing that definitely changed, throughout the course of lockdown was from a curatorial perspective, because I've been speaking with Yorkshire Sculpture Park, Arts Council England about this, and all of a sudden I realized it's like, damn, who actually really needs a platform right now? It's artists, it's galleries all over the world. And so effectively, we're not setting out to be a gallery or a museum, we're a space. So we've collaborated with, Goodman from South Africa, galleries from New York, Lemon Maupin and Kate McGarry that's here, and included different artists who are represented and not. And that's a change that came out of lockdown, because you need to support each other and create a space for other people to show and, further afield. And then I think there's one more element that's important. And what I've noticed is points of connection, right? And so this is a point of connection, even if it's a digital one. And so every week we have a different event, which connects some of the artists with different people to the space and what it stands for. And next week we're going to be talking about arts and health, right? So we've got the chief curator from Yorkshire Sculpture Park, who's going to be speaking alongside one of the other artists so I want to hand it over to other people to speak, but I think that what are the key points that I'm trying to come across? Like, number one is people are really, 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 really starved for physical gallery spaces. Nothing will ever replace it. Number two, there's a real sense of community that's being built. This is a sense of community. And number three, that this is an exciting time, I think, for digital innovation, but to set out and do digital innovation with soul, as opposed to just mimicry, right? So literally just copying the real world and putting it into the virtual, that doesn't work. You have to create other universes, which is what I'm setting out to do. So that's me.
Amazing, amazing, thank you. I have some questions for you, but it's next round.
Oh my God, go for it. Oh, I should mention also that we've sold several works through the online view, the online gallery space.
Oh,
so
great.
it's actually working. So, and with other sales then happening through the galleries, because then they get introduced. Yeah. So it's very interesting to see where this is going to go.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask Sylvain to say something, because you have an online collection. So I think it's a very nice link between the two of you. Jenn being an organizer and more a gallerist, and you are a collector who brings art together and basically created your online museum. Maybe you want to share your thoughts.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. And, I'm very keen to listen to the others, because I'm always very inspired by the others. First, about the COVID and how did I experience the COVID? I was in Paris. To tell you the truth, I had an interesting experience with the COVID, because I was confined with two women who are hypochondriac. So it was, I didn't know if it will really be the COVID who will kill me or the women. And so I had to balance between the two. And this was not very easy, but I survived, which is a good point. The other thing which I noticed during this period, which was, I was really very, really make me feel good, is the solidarity between people. I think this, we had really a lot of solidarity with the health people and with all the people. I think this was very interesting. The third point is that the COVID made people rediscover their family, all types of discovery, good or bad. We'll see with the numbers of divorce and babies in 9 months. So it was, it will be very interesting to have the numbers of the post-COVID situation, if I shall say. No, it was, I think it was a time that gave us the opportunity to reflect a little bit more, to understand that life is not always about moving, and that also is about being still, being lazy. I think we rediscover laziness. Personally, I rediscovered laziness as a very good way to I shall say, to inspire my brain. Just to finish with this, my conclusion of my COVID. It was an interesting conclusion, is that what is interesting is how do I perceive the future? There is two ways to perceive the future for me, and everybody will perceive it according to his own situation, location, and I should say all types of personal characteristics. Either you see first that the COVID is either you see it as a anni horribili, either you see it at a real shifting time. So this is the first reaction that you have to take into account. Personally, I think it's a shifting area. And the other thing, either you see that the future will be a normal future, either we will have a post-normal future. A normal future, a new normal future that many people expect, means that we will refund the same world in which we are living now, with stability, with predictability. I don't believe that. I think that we are in a post-normal time where we have to deal with unpredictability, a chaotic world. And so we have to be, I should say, in two types of posture. Either the one like the camel, it's a kind of survival mode. And you have to be ready to encounter black swans. And it means unpredictability. So now I'm fixing myself and the collection into this kind of new mindset of trying to, to see how we can last for the next 10 years, knowing that we already last for 15 years, taking into account this kind of new landscape. So this is where I am now at the present time.
And
I don't have a digital collection. We really have works, you can look at the works, it's big works. But what is interesting is that in 2005, we've been collecting with my wife for 34 years. We've been molded, we begin to collect into the Leo Castelli model, I shall say. And in 2000, we collected first contemporary art. Then very, very quickly, we collected design. I think we're one of the most important design collection in France. We collected design 22 years ago. And in 2005, we went to China. And we decided that we would like to make a Chinese collection because we think that art is one of the mirror of a society. And we wanted to find in the Chinese contemporary art the energy that we were experiencing in the city. But what was interesting is that we came back and we said, we don't want to collect as we used to collect. And especially we wanted to open the collection to the public. Mm-hmm. And at this time, the way to open the collection to the public was to open a space. And for many reasons, especially reasons of sustainability, we decided that we don't want to have a space, but a nomadic collection. It means that we want to loan works, but also 2005 was the beginning of YouTube. And we decided that it would be interesting to use internet to share the collection, especially with the Chinese. And from that time, we went from 2D museum, 3D museum. We were the first one to have a museum on Second Life. Then I think we were among the first one to have a museum on VR, virtual reality. And now our next project, we're on video games, and we'll have a video game by the end of the year.
Wow. So could you, I find that very interesting that you're always looking into new ways to present your collection, even though it's physical and people can see it in the physical space as well. But when you said that you have a kind of new mindset that developed during Corona, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Do you have already examples for that? Or is it really something that's still brewing and you cannot share yet?
No, I can share. It's first, I think for me, a collection is a journey. It's every collector has his own journey. I think that this journey is for me, it's the most interesting part of my life. I make my living in real estate, and I enrich myself with the collection. What is interesting for us today is to be on the move, and especially now we want to become more and more a platform of idea. We are very present on social networks where we share a lot of ideas. And now what is interesting for us is in a certain way to decollect and to go into something which is much broader, which is linked with the context of our time, which means it's linked with China, with new luxury, with the millennial, with the technology, with the aging population, we try to infuse in the collection more and more things coming from all these subjects.
Great. Joao, you wanted to? No.
I have lots of questions, but I'm saving them for the next part. Should we move to India?
Yeah.
Me? Great. Hi, everybody.
Let's move to India.
Let's move to India, yeah. So I think that, like everybody has said, India is still pretty bad. We have the cases are spiking every day. In the city that I live in, we're in a semi-lockdown kind of a space where more than the government mandated controls, people don't want to come to work. They're really, really afraid because we don't really have a healthcare system. So for people who are not that wealthy, healthcare is not a possibility for them. And hence they'd rather not come to work and expose themselves than actually appear there and get sick, which means that we're looking at a lot of things collapsing. So like, for example, as a gallery or as somebody who runs the sculpture park, I can't find laborers to move the artwork or get enough truckers to move artwork or people to hang artwork. So from micro to macro levels, we're seeing a breakdown in physical systems. Having said that, what's good is that people have a lot of time and a lot of the extra noise has exited our lives. There's not that much travel. There's just not that much, if I may say so, hurry. And hence, some good things are emerging. I think one of the best things that have emerged is collaboration, like a lot of us have specified. And even though physical borders have kind of closed in on us, and there's no travel in between countries for at least India, we're looking at the internet being an actual like passport to the rest of the world and getting that many more viewers for whatever you may have to give. In India, we never had like a shared WhatsApp group between gallerists. So that's been something that's new that's come up because of COVID. We started an online platform for about, now I think there are 14 galleries in it from across the country who came on to do like joint exhibitions, and everyone's working towards promoting it. As Nature Mod itself, we started our viewing rooms. And Jen, like you rightly said, a lot of replication of, often people are trying to replicate the physical into the virtual, which isn't the way to do it, in my opinion, because then we're trying to grab an existence that is already there. I think we can extend and expand the scope by looking at virtual as another space that can be inhabited as well. I don't think we need to make a choice. I think we can be in both spaces. So in terms of, COVID actually got us to really look at our digital presence. At the sculpture park, we're struggling because the physical space, it's a 500-year-old palace, and we had about 63 artworks there. We've had to wrap it up and send it back because I don't see these spaces opening or people coming in for the next maybe 5 months. So we've delayed the next edition of the sculpture park by about 7 months, and all going well. And if tourism begins again, we'll begin that, as well as the gallery program. Currently, there's no point, no one's going to come. What we are doing is actually, we figured that what is really required for the subcontinent was education, because we don't have the kind of infrastructure in India that teaches art or that showcases art or that has enough conversation about it. So August, we start the beta version of my new project, which is actually a blockchain-powered education platform, which also which will also have emerging artists. So all these things have been fueled because there was time. Because there was time to think about what are the real needs. How do we connect with people all across the world? How do we not focus on that? I'm saying the parties are amazing at the art fairs, but how do we not focus on that, but focus on what really matters, which is the art? If I have to get art online and that's sculpture, what's the best way of showcasing it? A 2D image isn't going to help it. So do we go into 3D scanning? Do we go into like what your DSL collection is? Do we look at virtual reality? Do we look at gaming to do mixed reality as an experience? Like, how do we really engage people? And do we need to engage them in replicating a physical space, or is there a dimension that we can think of which is not a replication of the physical space? So there have been, a lot of answers haven't come our way. We're still along that path, but I think on the whole it's been, and I say this from a position of being privileged, because I don't have to battle what a lot of people have to battle outside on the streets or in my country. But I think that we're going to see exponential innovation happening at this time. And I think that the physical gallery space will never get replicated. I think people will demand and want interaction. I think that we're opening up the world more. I don't think we're closing in. So let's see. That's what I have to say.
I like how perception of space in the digital is recurring, isn't it? We heard it a few times, and how the video games as well are coming again. Let's hear from Joost in South Africa.
Hey everyone. In South Africa, things are pretty dire at the moment. Similar to India, I think, I imagine similar to São Paulo. People just don't have the resources or the space to keep distance. I mean, to illustrate the point, those minibus taxis that some of you might know that get many people to and from work are operating at 100% capacity again as of last week. And that's not because things are better, so restrictions are being lifted, but it is because famine was becoming a bigger problem than COVID, because people were not being paid, people were not getting to work. So things are tough. We discovered yesterday that our framer had COVID and kept going into the framing studio. A lot of our support staff have been to the framing studio because we're busy preparing a small show at the gallery. So we've actually had to close the gallery as of today for about a week because of sort of massive exposure. So things are tough. If you look behind me, you're actually not seeing Cape Town. I've relocated to Amsterdam 2 days ago. I was incredibly privileged to be able to take a repatriation flight organized by the Dutch embassy and KLM. And right now I feel a bit like a zoo animal who's been dropped into the jungle, because I'm used to all these very strict restrictions, and I look outside and there's no face masks and people are happy and smiling, and there's not much stress about the virus. So I'm a bit dazed and confused at the moment. But I think that immediately illustrates the first step we've taken as a gallery. We've had an office in Amsterdam for about a year now, but we've sort of used it on and off for small projects. When I was in Europe, I'd stop by there and do things, but we weren't really programming it very actively. And the idea now of me being here is that I'm able to travel throughout Europe, but also that we can program that space like we otherwise might have programmed our art fair program, to give people in Europe a chance to actually see work in real life. I'm not a believer in all of the online content stuff. I'm very skeptical. I've seen 1 or 2 things that are nice, but my head starts spinning a little bit when I hear blockchain educational initiatives and all these online things. And I do think the parties matter. And I don't mean to say that art should be just about lifestyle, but if I think of the art world, it's 50% community and 50% art or content. And I think we've all been very proactive in sort of throwing all the content online, but I don't think we've really worked out, and I think Maaike here is trying in a way with these events. I don't think we've really figured out how to put community online. My big prediction, which I'm going to make public here, which I haven't really shared with anyone yet, is that the way the last decade or 15 years was the sort of decade of art fairs, and we saw an incredible growth. I mean, if I speak to some of my younger colleagues, they didn't know that art fairs weren't always this dominant. Whereas I'm not that old, but I remember when I started out, art fairs were much less central to what we were all doing. So I think we just had the decade of the art fair. I think we're about to enter the decade of the gallery weekend or the gallery week. I think they offer many of the same advantages that art fairs do. Communities can get together, collectors, gallerists can get together. But it's much easier to keep your distance. It's also much more fun to actually discover a city. You're not stuck in a convention center eating $15 sandwiches, but you can go and discover a nice new restaurant and actually see the spaces that gallerists have invested so much time and energy in. I've certainly personally, if I'm going as a visitor, I've enjoyed Berlin Gallery Weekend much more than I would enjoy an average art fair. It's very sad to miss or have to cancel my trip to Beijing for their gallery week this year. So yeah, my big prediction is that we're going to see much of the art travel, the art lifestyle travel, which I'm not saying sort of derisively. I think it's incredibly important. We need people for whom art is a part of their life. It certainly is for me. I think we're going to see a lot of that travel shift to gallery weeks and gallery weekends from art fairs. And I actually think that's a really wonderful possible development.
Joost, do you have the idea that this is also intensified by the fact that there is the pandemic, so that people are just traveling more locally, or?
Completely. I think we now all of a sudden realize that these art fairs weren't as much fun and weren't as healthy as we all thought they were. And there's other ways of doing it. I think it's precisely because of the pandemic that we've been complaining about it, and some people who were in the position to do so had been dropping out of art fairs. You know, we've seen some sort of articles and statements along those lines. But I think we're going to go back to art in actual real estate, in actual galleries. I think Dominique Levy opening in Paris is an example of that. I literally think, I haven't spoken to her about it, but I literally think they sort of allocated the art fair budget to rent real estate. I mean, our Amsterdam space, this is insane, but we have an office in Amsterdam for a full year for the same amount of money it costs to do one fair. So we can choose to be in a tent or a convention center for 1 week, or be in a major European city for a whole year. Of course, London is more expensive. New York might be more expensive, but the economics are pretty insane when you start adding things up.
And how, because with the other people in the panel, we hear that they come up with more digital solutions. And how do you see that connection? Because this sounds a little bit more disconnected from the fact that there is a pandemic that is still that is shutting down countries again, and that's kind of, we really don't know yet what's going to happen.
I would argue the opposite. I don't think it's disconnected from that at all. And of course, we've done our best to put information online, and we were doing it before, and we're doing it a little bit better now. I did like when Jerry Saltz, I think, tweeted at some point, stop calling it an online viewing room, it's a website. And it's true, right? A lot of what we were doing is just doing what we were doing before, but a little bit better. And I'm in the fortunate position that I've got business partners who are looking after our Instagram and are making these online viewing rooms because we have to. But just because we're stuck with these very limited tools, I don't think means we need to imagine the future on the basis of these limited tools. That's a bit of a Stockholm syndrome, which I don't think is very healthy. I think we need to think much bigger.
Yeah.
I think Joost is making a point on the importance of the physical space. And we had like Jenn, Aparajita, and Sylvain talking about the importance of the virtual space. And so one question that comes to me is that how is the space in the virtual? Because some of the projects we see, we have the virtual where there's still somebody with a body, still somebody walking, still somebody seeing stuff on the walls with an idea of space. And so that's in a way still a reflection of how we perceive space in our like analog world. So I'm wondering whether this is one route, and perhaps another route could be something more like a hyperlink zone where you connect thoughts one to the other, or what are the alternatives for the perception of space we have in the digital? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, especially Jenn,
yeah.
Go on.
Yeah,
I'm burning to talk, let's hear.
I think so. Ideas take time, especially to make good ideas. So, you know, when I shared Aora, this is something that I've been thinking about for 3 years, and the idea originated when I was in hospital, and I noticed that there was art on the corridors, but there was none in my room. And I was like, well, why would a hospital bother, right? And I like to go down rabbit holes, and I get obsessed with stuff. And so I went down a rabbit hole looking into the neurological benefits of art. And I got a university in the UK to fund actually the creation of a first 3D gallery. And it sucked. It was so bad. And the reason why it was so bad was that, number one, we were really mimicking reality, which is what several platforms that have been launched during lockdown have been doing, where, you know, it was the walls were now inspired, the floor, we were even putting the lights that you would have lighting up a gallery, you know, in this room. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? And then the other thing is, you know, I think this actually comes to something Aparajita said, is like, not necessarily, I mean, I think there's nothing like experiencing art in real life, but not all art, I think, lives in a virtual world. And what I noticed is that all this artwork had been selected on the basis of very traditional art historical tenets, like, was this a famous artist from the 1960s? But the first time when you encounter, say, a Rothko, for example, you're not going tick, tick, tick. It's more like, oh, color, form, depth. So basically what I'm proposing is, you know, the amount that you build, and I'm obsessed with architecture, I'm obsessed with spaces, the amount of detail that you pay attention to when you're building that, you can translate that over into a digital world and just create something from scratch. Create something from scratch that reflects you. And you don't have to have lights shining in a room, you know, on the contrary, you know, us with the VR developer, we were playing with the light so that it would fall at particular points on the wall or on the floor so that it would frame an artwork, right? It's not actually going to work like that in real life, but it's not so distant from it that you know. And I really want to come back to what I was saying about soul. And it's really trying to just to think, to feel, right? And that's why there's 3 spaces. Each has a very distinct mood. And we invited different composers for each of the rooms to put forward a piece of music. And we've got, you know, Nico Muli, who's an insanely talented, you know, musician from New York. Yet we have Alex Mills from London. And that means that every time you step in, there's a different feel. But coming back to everyone's point, and I really, 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 really agree with Joost, is that I think the gallery weekend thing is something. And I don't think this is ever going to take away from that. It's just two distinct things. And, you know, I would hope that, for example, if you did want to do something digitally, you could be like, hey, Jen, what about this artist for this? It kind of suits your mission, and we get your feeling. So those are my 2 cents. But it really is about creating something. It's not one thing fits all. You really have to create from scratch. You've got to make that effort in the same way that your gallery feels different from another person's gallery. It's the only way that it works.
It's another variable when you're curating, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the space that you create is in a way very traditional, kind of a museum space. So how did you come to that decision? Because the digital space is so different. You can also make a choice to use all these different rules for how to navigate or how the space even looks.
So, I mean, it was my business partner, who's an architect, who created it. So I will share. It's like there's 3 holes. The first one was inspired by the turbine hole, but then actually we weren't inspired by museum spaces at all. You know, the second room is inspired by the Domus Aurea, which was a structure built by Emperor Nero and was burnt down in 64 AD. So we were inspired by that. And then the last one, we were thinking about pathways and galleys, and that's what inspired the third one. You see, every single time there's a different play of texture. But actually, coming back to the museum point, we did think about what places inspire us around the world. And we thought of Yorkshire Sculpture Park, we thought of Naoshima. And what was the running thing throughout these places is that it was a meeting of art, architecture, and context. So rather than actually copying a museum, we're actually trying to capture that feeling where when you walk into that kind of space and you breathe, your chest just expands. That's what we're trying to capture rather than a museum.
Yeah. Anna, maybe because you spoke a little bit about traveling and being in New York and being in São Paulo, but how do you, as a collector and person who is in between organizing and collecting and doing having so many different roles, how do you look at your collecting practice at the moment, and how did COVID influence that?
Yes, I am very traditional, different from Mac. I prefer the physical experience. I want to learn better than just collect. I want to get in touch with artists and the studios. This is possible with digital. And I think we are putting digital in the top of every discussion. I think it's gonna be a huge part of our lives. We learned a lot in a short term, you know, the gallerists, the collectors, people in general. But I am very skeptical, like Joost, about, you know, that we have to find a balance. I don't want to collect or buy art virtually. I want to feel the material. I want to feel the scale. I want to even the environment. You know, it's very important. As Jenn mentioned, Naoshima, for instance, it's beautiful. I've been there, but you have the experience to be there. So we have to find a balance. Nobody, we can't say now we are going to collect to virtual platforms or having a, we need the experience to be very close to.
Yeah.
I agree with the number of art fairs. It was impossible, even without the pandemic. Who could travel so much to, even for the galleries, besides to spend a lot of money, participate of, even you don't have the, first of all, your agenda, it's impossible to couple with. So perhaps Basel will be strong and think with different approach. I've been listening to some discussions with the guy, the director from Basel, and like today, like the panel like today, how was, and some collectors, it's not nostalgia, but we need a little bit more art and to be in touch with very good art and very good dealers and to talk with them. This is the mood for an art fair, not as a lifestyle. It became a lifestyle to be there and there. So I think and I hope we have less, a short number of art fairs, and of course, putting together with digital approach and everything, but it's very hard to predict what's going on. We are in a stage. I don't think it's gonna be this or that. You know, we are learning a lot. What I think it's good, what's happening. Talking about education, for instance, the institutions, the museums, they were very, very fast doing some platforms, giving lectures, giving classes. So this is something that it's, in my opinion, it's going to be to stay. You know, they're going to improve. And you have, for instance, here, our museum, MASP Museum, the Modern Art Museum. We are doing so many good things in terms of education, but and you can get people from all over, not only from Brazil. If you are abroad, you can have this to be in contact. This is a positive thing, and I think it's gonna be for a while and better. But we are talking about digital and to be in touch, but do you think, we have time. Now we have time. And I don't suppose in the future, I hope, we are going to have not a normal life. I don't know what's going to happen, but we are not going to be at home like it's 9 o'clock or 9:30 here in São Paulo. We have to think about time. Now we are exposed to, we want to see each other. We have this time that's precious, and I don't think we are going to have this in the future also.
No.
So we have to think a lot about it. It's going to be like this or that. We are really in a very, just speculation, in my opinion. And it's good to discuss. It's good. And what we are doing now and what I've been doing with galleries here, the local galleries. We have an art fair here. It's an international art fair that the quality is very good. But imagine now to organize an art fair, it's impossible to think about. So it's a very, very big discussion. You can buy online. That's my opinion. I bought online this to help some artists, to help some people that with the money we could buy food for for people that need it. But it's you buy something that you don't put a lot of money buying by online. If you have to spend a lot of money, I prefer to be in touch, to see and physically. So there is so many things to put on, to balance. And I agree with Joost also in terms of locally, the galleries will be, they are going to do something to get people together and to bring more locally art, I suppose. But on the other hand, we need now, the art world is international. In the past was very local. Yeah. Many Brazilians start their collection collecting Brazilian art only. But now with the art fairs and everything, it's kind of huge collections here with international artists. So
I think it will change a lot, isn't it?
I think.
Yeah, Maaike, you wanted to ask.
I thought to Aparajita, maybe you can respond a bit as a gallerist to how you work with the collectors right now, that we get a little bit more of an idea about that and how the problem of not being able to have people in the space or having this physical encounter that's very much needed, I think, for buying art. I hear that from Sylvain and I hear that from Anna, and Joost is very much talking about that. So how do you as a gallerist deal with that?
So actually the truth is that 90% of our sales were happening over WhatsApp or over online anyway. I mean, most of our collectors don't even live in the city. So when they could fly in, they would come to the gallery to see work. Otherwise, we were selling it on an image or on a video or through digitally in a matter of speaking. So the purchase is only impacted currently by the fact that people don't want to spend. It's much more impacted by a sense of indecision or a sense of vulnerability about the future. It is. I don't think the lack of physical space is preventing people from buying currently, at least for us in India. Having said that, art fairs, of course, got us new buyers and new people that we weren't aware of, and so that is gonna take. I don't know how that's going to be replicated, but we aren't struggling because we've gone digital. As in, it's the same thing. They were anyway buying out of my WhatsApp, so on PDFs and.
And could you say maybe a little bit more about, because you said that you got this WhatsApp group where you speak with other gallerists, and I think that's also something that Joost is saying, and I totally agree with that. Like how do we work with our community and how do we create community while being in the lockdown or not having these physical encounters?
So we have galleries all across the country. So we've created one group for the country and for all gallerists to come on board. And we share some articles like different things that are happening. Whoever has an insight, if people need some help, they put it up there. So it's actually a great sense of community, something that we never had before. And possibly won't even have everybody's number saved. So that's been great. The other thing is actually an online kind of a website which has 14 galleries, I think, on it with exhibits of 12 works, and each gallery is sending it out to their list of buyers. So they end up seeing everybody's works. And in a way, it kind of mimics the idea of a gallery weekend. Now in India, Mumbai already does a gallery weekend, which is actually insane fun. And you end up going to the galleries, and it's very heady and it's lots of fun because you end up seeing the same people through the night, but at different parts of cohesion and how cohesive somebody is. I mean, it's real fun. Delhi, because the city is much larger and you can't walk between places, it makes it a little bit more challenging. It could take anywhere between 40 minutes to an hour and a half to navigate between two locations. So the weekend, it's exhausting, but I think that the gallery weekend idea is something that we're going to have to consider, because I don't know when art fairs are going to happen again, or at least for the conceivable future. But Kochi Biennale is continuing for December, which is, as of now, they've just announced their list of artists, and I don't even know how they're going to make it happen. I believe Artissima is going to happen in November in Italy, or is it October and November? So everybody hasn't given up, but everyone's in different stages of giving up, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Aparajita. I wanted to raise the subject of video games that's came up twice before. How do you, perhaps Sylvain can start, how do you see this relationship between collecting and video games? Does it mean that video games will become more considered an object of art and therefore will enter art collections, or the visit of a virtual collection will be gamified? How do you see collecting and video games coming together?
First, can I just add some ideas on what have been said? I think that first, I don't never speak of space in digital, I speak of experience. And there's a huge difference between experience and space. And especially even today, when people go to museums, especially the young people, they don't go for contemplation, they go for experience and sharing their experience. So this is the first thing, is that especially the young generation is no more about contemplation. And I think that when you do a collection open to the public, you have to focus also on the audience and to see what the audience wants. This is the first thing. The other thing which I noticed is that if you look at the other industries, music, for instance, people go to concerts, but most of the people discover music not on the streaming, but on YouTube, which is not the original work, shall I say, of an artist. The other thing is, which is very important, why people go to museum today. They don't go for education, they go to have fun. And when we speak of fun, it means that you have to replace today art in its context. And the context today is art is part of the leisure industry. Today, the competitors to a museum is Netflix and Crunch. It's not a museum. And this is the huge problem. And this is why no museum are capable to sustain financially their model, because their model is based on something which is totally impossible to, I shall say, to be successful in terms of monetarization. Imagine, let us take an example. The Louvre, they had 11 million visitors last year. They had 12 million visitors during the COVID, okay? Imagine that tomorrow there is a kind of freemium model where you can visit the Da Vinci exhibition, 2 rooms, and you pay $5 to see the other rooms with a curator. Imagine that you can reach 10 million people in the world and they pay $5. You change the model. And I think that what is important today is to change the models. To change the model of the museum today is no more sustainable. Look at what's happening today to the museums. They are all disappearing. They are all in danger. So I don't think that we have to look at the past. We have to look at the present time where the generation which is consuming art is very different. We like it or we don't like it. And if we don't make this effort without, I should say, losing your soul or selling your soul to the devil, because I think, as many persons said, we have to stay human, and we more and more in the time where it looks like 1984, we have to be more and more humanist, and art is a good way to be humanist. But I think that in another way, when the winds of change are blowing, you cannot protect yourself by building walls, but you should have windmills to try to have new ideas. And I think it's time to have new ideas in the art world. Coming back to the galleries, as I said to you, I love the galleries because I've been molded by galleries. But it's true that today the model of the gallery is not working, and a lot of galleries will disappear. So the idea is not to say we have to do something which is the replication of the old world, is try to see if we can find models where we can balance between, I should say, what we like, which is the encounter with an artwork, but also with our times. And I think this is, for me, the most interesting challenge for the next 10 years, is how I can stay a very old-fashioned collector, but have, I should say, also my feet in this new area. So I think it's coming back to the video game, it's just part of this new world. And why video games? It's simply because Fortnite had 300 million people playing on Fortnite. And the Louvre, which is the biggest museum in the world, has 11 million people. So why don't we can infuse art as a content in a game and try to reach certain people on them? Why Pokemon Go was a success? So I think that, and video game also is very interesting, because one of the biggest problems which happened for me with this everybody going online was the content was very, for me, not very exciting. And in terms of the way to use the screen, the best people today are the people from the video games, because they know how to make interactivity, how to make emotion, and how to make scalability.
Yeah.
So by using video games, you enter into a new way to I should say, use a screen as a new experience.
You know, I was asked to give a talk inside a Minecraft school. So it's
just to a comment. I agree with you, Mark. We have to have a balance. We don't go to extremes, in my opinion. In terms of video games, for instance, the last meeting I had with the board at Museum of Modern Art here, where I belong, we are discussing about the video games. And we were trying to do something in this field, and it happens last week, this discussion. So we are up to date. What I think that we have to go step by step, because you don't only have young people, you have many, you have different people. And the museums, I agree with you, it's very hard to maintain those institutions. They depend on money that from corporations and everything that's not doing very well in this moment. But so what we have to do, in my opinion, is to have the open mind, to listen as we are discussing here, to pick up the good ideas, and going step by step to see what's going to happen in a short future, I think, not in the future, you know, the present, and think about everything and create a balance. I agree. I believe in balance, not in the extremes. But congratulations about your open mind also. to seeing the collections and seeing like you do. But you have a business mind also. I am not so brilliant as you are.
I have a business mind because, to tell you the truth, collecting is an elegant way to burn a fortune. I don't think that I can make money in art. I make money in real estate, and I burn my money in art. So I don't believe it's a good way to make money.
You called it an addiction before, right?
Yeah, but I think art could be looked at it like an entrepreneurial project. I think it can be also something which is not only about collecting objects. It can be also about having a kind of entrepreneurial view. But I totally agree with what you said. I think that art is very diversified. I think that we should not go in one direction and forget the others. This makes the beauty, but it's also make the difficulties of our time, is how to be polyvalent and how to last, because the most difficult will be to last, not to do, because to do we can do, but to last, this will be the big challenge for the next 10 years.
I would like to ask Joost to respond to this, because Joost, you're one of the 13 owners of a gallery, which I think is already a very interesting model that you diversify in that way already. How you come, you have to basically collaborate to even choose your artists. So you create your own community of owners. What do you think about that the gallery is obsolete and that it in the form that it's now is maybe not working in 10 years?
I think galleries will be fine. I think I'm trying to think of the economic principle. Is it the Lindy principle, where something is as likely to stay or is likely to stay on as long as it has already existed? And galleries have existed for a long time. Maybe it doesn't survive in exactly the same model, but as long as there are artists, which I think will be forever, and as long as there are people with sort of resources, spare money, there'll be a need for people like myself, like some of the other panelists, to be the in-between, the translator of those two worlds. So I think galleries will be fine. I mean, will we have more or less physical real estate in 10 years' time than now? I really have no idea. If I've learned anything this year, is that predictions are futile, really. Will we be more online or less online in 10 years' time? I really have no idea. Are we all going to be buying art on Second Life or Minecraft? I really don't know. But I think galleries are fine. As long as there are artists and as long as there is money, galleries will survive. I'm really optimistic, actually, about the future.
That's good. And how do you see how do you see this translation of having a collection, having a physical collection, translated it into, for instance, a video game?
Or asking the absolutely wrong person. I'm trying to be as analog as possible. So I just have no idea. I'd love to try it out and see it. And I've sort of clicked around in some experiments that I've encountered over the last few months, but I don't have the right kind of brain.
I'd like to take this moment to invite you to see some of our previous debates, like we did it on the previous one, we did it on technology. And we talked to artists and curators, and it was really interesting to see their thoughts on how these two, the analog and the digital, can collaborate, and different thoughts on video games. Like they were talking about this post-escapism video game. You have video games that usually alienate, take you away from reality. So now they're developing video games that draw you in back to reality, and spaces, physical spaces where you can visit as an avatar. And there's a few thoughts in the YouTube channel that perhaps you'll find it interesting. And I think how do you pronounce it? Joost?
However you like.
Joost.
Okay, I like
very Dutch name, Joost.
When you mentioned how you leverage one location on the other, like you were in South Africa, then you had an office in Amsterdam, and then you could fly over and maybe like reinvent this office to be like a permanent like exhibition space instead of doing art fairs. And so, and there was a lot of value in being two physical locations, right?
Absolutely. And I think those of us on this call from I mean, I guess the BRICS countries can understand just how bizarre it is to be in Europe right now and what's possible. I think it's probably the only place in the world where there is some semblance of normality at the moment. Very glad we didn't have an office in New York, because I wouldn't have wanted to go there, even if I could have. So I think it's absolutely essential for us. And art fairs, you know, I might have been rude about them earlier, but they were completely essential in the growth of our gallery. It would not have been possible to have a gallery in Cape Town, in South Africa, and build it to the point where we are now if we hadn't been in New York once a year, in London once a year, in Basel once a year for the past 15 years. So we need that kind of international presence. People need to be able to meet us. People need to know that we exist, that we're not, you know, some kind of online scam. So it's incredibly important to be in front of people in real life. And I think we're fortunate. When we opened the office in Amsterdam, we definitely thought of it as an alternative to art fairs. We were kind of bullied into it by one of our artists, which of course is how most good projects, gallery projects start. And after we decided to do it and we realized that it was the sort of cost-wise was the equivalent of an art fair, we really started thinking of it as an alternative. At that point, we didn't know how prescient that turned out to be and how necessary it would become a year later. But I think it's essential. And I think we see it with Mendes Wood, who've opened in Brussels. And I think there's a number of other examples of people just wanting some sort of access. And in the absence of art fairs, it will be that much more important.
Can I make one more, thank you. Can I make one more question before we round up, or do we have to round up? Maaike is the boss.
I'm not the boss. I mean, we have 10 more minutes, so I think it's nice if everyone can say their last thoughts, but
you give a couple of minutes to each to share the last thoughts.
Yeah. Maybe Jenn, it seems you want to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that so my big passion has always been alternative approaches to exhibition making and funding. And, you know, that led, I set up a nonprofit about 4 years ago that collectively raising funds for projects that inspire dialogue in and out of Asia, about 400 something people around the world. And we've funded 5 projects so far. But I really want to say that I completely agree with Joost, what he's saying about art fair, alternative, different approaches. I used to be the director at a gallery in Hong Kong and Shanghai called Edouard Malang. And I helped build the gallery for 7.5 years. I was there a long time. And actually one of the main things I kept on telling Edouard was, this was actually 4 years ago. I'm like, look how much money we're spending on ads in magazines. You're spending 5K on that magazine. Give me those 12, let's get rid of 2 ads in those magazines. Give me that 10K and I'll do an exhibition with those same artists that will get more revenue. Revenue being not only in terms of artwork sales, but also being written about in a magazine. And I remember that we did a first experiment in Liverpool at the time of the biennial, and they had a huge spread in art review. And then those artists went on to show at the Whitechapel Gallery. And is it consistently doing projects like that? And absolutely, exactly what you're saying, it's like reallocating funding. Instead of allocating, you know, 20K, 30K minimum into an art fair, you allocate that into a project space, or actually different pop-ups, right? It doesn't always have to be open. And it really, really works. I mean, an artist that you'll know, Sylvain Levy, I did a massive exhibition in a palazzo in Bergamo with his work. The project cost 50K. Each of his artworks go for 50K. We sold 22 paintings. So anyone, you do the maths. And so those kinds of approaches, they really work. And it comes back to what you're saying about experience and feeling. So I think it's really cool that we're all thinking in that way. That's it.
I'm going to go next because, like you said, reallocate funding. One of the things we did actually a few years ago was exit out of one fair and put that money for curatorial grants through my nonprofit. And we actually flew in curators, 3 curators a year into India to do a deep dive into the cultural context and really understanding South Asian contemporary art from within the country, not from outside. And about 12 shows emerged out of those different, grants. And so, I mean, it's all about thinking differently and reallocating that money to get a better sort of experience of the art in possibly a physical form.
Good thinking. I'm enjoying this. I'm learning.
No, it's amazing that I think you're all already thinking about different structures, and it's just interesting to hear how this time of the lockdown and for some of us the aftermath influence it, you know. Sylvain, you want to add something?
First, thank you very much. I think it's I heard a very valuable point of view, very diverse. I think that everybody has his own way to do things, his own way to be happy and to be relevant for the others. And I think it's nobody has a choice, especially at this time. And so I think we will see changes. We will see things like a normal future. But it will be, in a certain way, an exciting time. Even it can be a difficult time. I think in times like this, it's time where things move. But what is important for me is to be relevant for the others always, because I've decided to open the collection to the public. So I think we have to listen to the public to see how we can be relevant for them, but to stay ourselves and to try to last. We'll see. If you invite me in 10 years, I'll see if I was right or wrong.
Yeah, let's do that.
The next time, 10 years.
Yeah. Joost?
I don't really know if I have anything to add at this point, other than inviting all of you to come visit us in Amsterdam. I'm now here. And maybe just to illustrate all of these discussions, my very next Zoom call is with all the other South African galleries about what form Art Joburg, what traditionally is an art fair in September, what form it will take online this year.
Wow.
So I have to go play the role of being grumpy about online in another Zoom call just now. But thank you very much, Maaike and Joao, for hosting this and for inviting us. And please also, fellow panelists, let's stay in touch, because I really enjoy being proved wrong. So I'm going to look at all of your platforms over the next couple of days and weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, you want to share some last thoughts?
Yes, I want to thank you both to invite me to this panel. I like very much to listen to different opinions and research and goals. And what we have in common is the pandemic. It's because everybody here lives in different countries and situations. So even the art world here, the art market here in Brazil, it's completely located in São Paulo. You know, it's a big country. We have good galleries, but the main thing is happens in São Paulo. So we have just this sad situation in common right now, but many, many other things to think about, the different realities. But in common also we have the art, the love, and the love about collecting and being in this field that put us together with so many differences, and in such a huge distance, art make us to be together this morning. this morning for me, okay? So thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And Mac, thank you for your feelings, your goals, because I think you are thinking about exposing your collection for the public. This is that doesn't matter if it's digital or in physical presence. This is wonderful to expose to the public. And I hope that the two galleries here, they succeed in their, you are right to go to different ways to dealing. And Joost, I want to see you in some art fair in the future, in a very short term. Where are you, Joost?
He had to. He had to leave, unfortunately.
So
to
give him the message.
Yeah, I will. I will see him in Amsterdam in a few weeks.
Yes, I like it. I am not as analogic as he is, but almost like because the generation. But anyway, give my regards to him, and I hope there are different approaches from 3 different galleries, and it's very nice to be in touch. Thank you very much to invite me, João. Thank you.
Welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Joao and Maaike, for doing this, for getting us all together from all parts of the world. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it always works very well to hear the different voices and then see how so many ideas are similar, even though we're like spread over the world,
And please do tell Dominique she rocks.
Yeah.
Hands down her.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I wanted also to say, I mean, some of the ideas shared were brilliant, and I made lots of notes that I'd like to.
Yeah, we always have a lot of notes.
Yes. So I will invite the panelists maybe for some one-to-one time, so we can actually get deeper in some of the thoughts that were shared, and because I'm very interested in them, so I'll email you individually, and we'll see how we can coordinate that. Maybe do like a one-to-one conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lovely meeting you guys. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. I'll stay, Joao.
You stay. Let me stop this.